Around the world, governments are moving to restrict young people's access to social media. Malaysia is one of them.
Hasrat kami adalah untuk memastikan bahawa mereka yang berumur 16 tahun ke bawah tidak memiliki akaun media sosial.
Come July, Malaysian teens could find their accounts deactivated.
If it's banned, right, we're missing out on a lot of things about knowledge.
The move is meant to shield children from online harm.
1 in 25 children, so that's 1 or 2 in every classroom in Malaysia, has themselves experienced online sexual exploitation and abuse.
He kept on pestering me to send those news or else things will go downhill. So the 15-year-old me just said, okay, I do not know what to do, maybe all of this will end.
But critics question whether safety is the only motive.
So I think that will definitely crack down on the freedom of expression of young activists such as myself.
What's behind Malaysia's plan to ban social media for youths?
I don't think we expected children to be using social media as much as they are now. And there were a lot of the harms that just not many of us predicted.
And will it work? Like many teenagers, 17-year-old Wafi stays connected through social media.
When pandemic started, I used TikTok and Instagram a lot to connect with my friends since it was like the trend back then. 2024, I would say, was a very dark place for me, mentally and physically. I was in and out of the hospital 5 times in a year, and I also had some friendship problems and family problems. So I decided to go to social media for comfort. I used to post motivational quotes and all that, and it also gained me quite a few followers.
One day, he received a friend request from a girl he did not know.
She looked pretty normal and with somewhat many followers. So I just accepted her and we started talking. She started complimenting me and said I looked nice and replied to my stories. But one day, she started asking me questions, personal questions, that I was not comfortable for, such as, what is your size? And then I immediately blocked her. So I genuinely thought that was the end of it.
Soon, Wafi received a message request from an unknown account with no followers and no profile picture.
When I open it, it's from that account, and there's a list of my personal information and my family's personal information with pictures that were like, they were being stalked in a way. So I got absolutely scared, and when that person saw that I have seen their message, they immediately said, share your nude with me or else your family will come to harm.
The unknown account owner said she was the girl that Wafi had blocked. It turned out to be a fake identity.
So that person is actually a guy trying to groom me, I think, in a way. He kept on pestering me to send those news or else things will go downhill. So the 15-year-old me just said, okay, I do not know what to do, maybe all of this will end. So I sent my own video, and he kept like asking for more and more, but I just thought maybe if I block him, he would just stop.
But Wafi's ordeal did not stop there. The person continued to harass him using other fake accounts and threatened to spread the video.
So from there, I got like really scared. I was very ashamed with myself. I resented myself a lot. I didn't want to tell my family or friends because it's related to me sending a nude video of myself to other people. I don't know how they would react. It did affect my sleep a lot. I used to sleep at 5 or 4 thinking about it only.
Malaysia is one of Southeast Asia's most connected countries, with nearly 97% of people online. Over half of Malaysian children spend between 1 to 4 hours online each day, and 60% have their own gadgets. Platforms like TikTok and Instagram are among the most widely used apps by young Malaysians to communicate, socialize, and consume culture online.
Because Malaysia being so connected, definitely we see them online earlier, longer, and across multiple platforms. Digital connectivity does increase opportunity, but also the risk associated with it.
In Wafi's case, his encounter with online blackmail would affect his mental health.
I just decided to just ignore that person. So until now, I think he kept on messaging me, but I chose to ignore. I didn't do anything about it for quite some time. I also went through a depressive episode because of that, because I was angry with myself.
Between January to November 2025, the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission flagged 957 cases of harmful content involving children on social media. And so, the government decided it would act.
Hasrat kami adalah untuk memastikan bahawa mereka yang berumur 16 tahun ke bawah tidak memiliki akaun media sosial.
This follows a similar move by Australia. Last December, it became the first country to prohibit those under 16 from holding social media accounts.
I feel this move is the move to ban social media for under 16 is something that governments around the world are looking at because of the fact that the harms and the risk and the actual realities of online harms against children cannot be denied. When social media first came along, there was not much talk about online safety for children in terms of social media. I don't think we expected children to be using social media as much as they are now. And there were a lot of the harms that just not many of us predicted. The fact that there would be grooming, the fact that there would be sextortion, the fact that there would be sextortion by children to children. So these are all problems that are now emerging that needs to be addressed.
Malaysia's planned social media ban for minors is part of broader regulation to protect children and teens online, known as the Online Safety Act, which was enacted in May last year.
Kerajaan telah mengubah Akta Keselamatan Dalam Talian 2025 iaitu Akta 866 yang antara lain memperuntukkan kewajipan kepada pemberi perkhidmatan aplikasi dan juga pemberi perkhidmatan aplikasi kandungan yang dilaisenkan dengan mengawal selia kandungan memudaratkan dalam talian.
This new policy requires social media and internet messaging platforms to take active steps to prevent, report, and remove content involving child sexual abuse, financial fraud, harassment, incitement to violence, or terrorism. Non-compliance can result in fines of up to 10 million ringgit.
Misinformation and extremist content leverage emotional triggers and social contagion dynamics, and younger users can be particularly susceptible because they are still developing critical thinking and skepticism skills. In multiracial, multi-faith society like Malaysia and many other Southeast Asian countries, right, contextually potent misinformation can exploit identity narrative and social fault line, and then that can heighten social risk.
The algorithms that decide what gets pushed onto the account of young people, what they're seeing in terms of content, is something that is not well understood by the young users, and therefore it can distort their self-image, their self-worth, lead to other risky behaviors, and often children don't understand where that comes from, and they're blaming themselves.
According to an Ipsos survey, about 7 in 10 Malaysians believe social media should be restricted for children. On the other hand, around a quarter disagreed with this view. Student activist Ain Husniza among them.
I believe that the online spaces gave me a chance to explore thoughts or explore information that would otherwise not have been accessible to me.
When she was just 17, Ain rose to national attention. She did so by speaking up against sexual harassment and misogyny in schools.
A moment happened in school and in which that it kind of made me realize the pervasiveness of rape culture and sexual abuse that happened in schools, and I wasn't being taken seriously by my teachers or any of the authorities in schools. So what happened was that I decided to make a TikTok video about it. I slept and the next day I woke up and it had already gone viral, and we found out that so many other young girls out there were actually experiencing the same thing in Malaysian schools.
Her hashtag, Make Schools a Safer Place, eventually reached more than 22 million views. To her, social media was an indispensable tool for expression.
We are known as digital natives, and there is so many things that we've for example, even for a child to kind of communicate with another friend right now, they have to utilize social media. They utilize, education, right?
Particularly for marginalized communities that might not have so much connection in the real world, in the offline world. For some of them, it's the first time they find connection to other people that are aligned with them. And cutting off that connection could have real world and serious implications.
As for Wafi, he eventually found support from his parents and friends. The episode taught him a valuable lesson.
I'm definitely more careful. I don't like to post my face because I'm afraid of what the consequences could be. I just become more aware of the risk and safety, digital risk, and I feel more empowered to be on social media.
Supporters of a ban warn that social media can hinder a child's development, and evidence is mounting that they may be right.
I think when I was younger, maybe even 14 or 15, I would use my phone really first thing in the morning, so 6 a.m. something. I would look at my phone, check all the new trends, and then right after I come back to school, so around 12 or maybe 1 p.m., I would immediately go back onto the phone, text my friends, go through social media, and it would be a whole day thing. I wouldn't put down the phone. At night, it's the same thing. It's until really late, so maybe even 11, 12, maybe even 1 a.m.
Jessie reckons she used to spend as much as 15 hours on her phone each day. This far exceeds the time when screen time starts having ill effects.
According to research, they would say anywhere between 3 to 5 hours would be considered harmful. More than 3 to 5 hours, I would say, per day. But I think neuropsychologically speaking, it wouldn't be the hours spent, but rather what the children or what the teens are actually doing. For example, a child who's staying awake the whole night scrolling and then can't wake up in the morning, wakes up tired, that has more direct impact on a person's functioning than what they're actually, or how long they're actually scrolling.
Yes, I think that is the main concern, that most of the harms caused by social media are invisible, and this has to do with mental health impacts, sleep disruption, distorted self-image, and again, the constant stream and amplification of harmful content to young users.
In Jessie's case, she began having feelings of inadequacy.
I was mostly comparing myself to my peers because, in school it's really competitive. So it was all about, that competition feeling of wanting to be better, but also wanting to be their friend at the same time. So it's a very confusing moment in my life.
Psychologists call this upward social comparison, measuring yourself against others who seem more successful online. And research shows adolescents are especially vulnerable.
So if you're using it as a comparison tool, you see people's travel photos and people's holidays pictures, and then you're comparing yourself saying, oh, I don't go anywhere, I can't afford to travel, and then it makes you depressed. and then it leads to anxiety.
Of course, I mean, I felt happy for them because they were achieving great things. Who wouldn't be happy for a friend, right? But at the same time, that feeling of, jealousy, envy, it always comes out.
Yet, it can be difficult for teens to turn away from scrolling. Dr. Niva Mohan is a clinical neuropsychologist. She has worked with children and teens who suffer from the effects of long-term social media usage.
Every time you scroll or you do something that triggers pleasure, for example, checking your social media messages or the amount of likes you get on any post or response to your TikTok, it boosts your dopamine in the brain. And especially for teenagers, this boost is very significant. It becomes almost addiction-like for them. So they need to keep doing it. And the more they do it, the more the brain requests or the brain needs this push, this dopamine push.
Dopamine is a brain chemical that motivates us to seek rewards. Repeated hits can train the brain to crave the behavior, increasing the risk of addiction.
These mechanisms are very, very susceptible to the teenage brain because they do get socially and rewarded every single time they receive a notification. So these platforms know that and they harness that.
When I was younger, I was actually a lot into digital art, so I would post a lot of the drawings that I used to draw. I would kind of show it off, get comments, appraise, all of those things. I was posting these digital arts on IG and I felt very good about myself because when people compliment you, it's natural to feel great, right? So because of that, it kind of fueled my feeling to post more and more.
I would literally use it every single minute. That was like my safe space. From the moment I wake up to the moment I sleep, it's like mostly my day is filled with me just using social media.
The reward feedback loop affects all ages, but research shows it hits teens and children harder.
In terms of a neurological pathway or impact, adults have the ability to stop when they want to consciously, whereas teenagers and the growing brain really find it hard. Our prefrontal cortex, the frontal part of the brain that is responsible for things like emotional regulation, self-esteem, decision-making, rewards, pleasure, does not fully mature until we are 18. As adults, we are able to stop, we're able to evaluate what we're doing and move on. Whereas with teens, they get repeated dopamine hits, meaning that every time they post and then they have 200 likes or 2 likes or whatever, it affects them directly. And they do not have the ability to stop this compulsive repeated checking behavior.
12-year-old Alyssa uses social media to help with her schoolwork and to keep in touch with her friends.
Yeah, I play games and chatting with my friends. Video calls actually, that's make it to 6 hours. But it doesn't affect my daily life, but basically. It just affect my studies. Yeah, I got a low grade for math. My mom thinks it's about my phone. And yeah, I kind of agree with that. Because I did watch my phone too much. Yeah.
Alyssa's parents got her a phone when classes moved online during the COVID-19 pandemic.
That time, she's too young and then sometimes she's sneaking under the blanket, watch the phone, using the phone, so that time she get caught and then I scold her.
I'm a parent myself and I can see my children when they have the screens, they're happy, they are excited, and then the minute you remove the screens, they dysregulate. They are irritable, they become angry. So long-term repeated use of social media as a child programs you to become an anxious, irritable adult. And like I said, the side effects or the long-term effects would be depression. We see a lot of that. Anxiety, comparison.
As a working parent, Kohanis tries her best to manage Alyssa's phone usage. Malaysia's Ministry of Health recommends a maximum of 1 hour of screen time a day for children aged 2 to 5 and less than 2 hours for those 5 to 17.
I can use the parental control from the Google account where I add Alyssa account and her phone under this parental control apps where I can manage her time screening. If I see that her time screening is over the limit, I can control it to 2 hours, 1 hour. Depends on when I discuss with my husband.
What's more, a child's online behavior can shape how they act offline.
Now, when teenagers are bored, they just reach for the phone. So it makes us a very introverted society. They lose out on key social interaction skills. They lose out on being bored because they don't know what it means to be bored because they're constantly being stimulated.
I think that urge comes mostly when I have like nothing to do. So most of the times, if I'm bored, I'll end up wanting to check my phone. And I mean, it's mostly the reels that make you stay in because although it's a shorter time span, it just makes you want to focus more because you think in your head like, oh, it's just 10 seconds, then 10 seconds turn into 10 hours because you've watched like hundreds of videos that are each 10 seconds.
Across multiple surveys, Gen Zs, the first generation that grew up with social media, report having less face-to-face interactions than earlier generations. They also have higher feelings of loneliness.
But we are seeing a decline in social interaction. If you see a bus or if you are on the LRT, you would see everybody with their headphones. You know, nobody is talking, nobody's doing anything. You see a whole generation of people going to work, just listening to music, individual, right? They find people, human interaction annoying. They find social engagement annoying. So we are already seeing that in our generation. So I think it's only going to get worse with prolonged exposure to social media.
But social media can be a positive tool for youths.
There is an opportunity for education, for self-expression and for connection. And I think especially on connection, we should not underestimate that.
After her experience speaking out on sexual harassment, Ain Husniza founded Pocket of Pink, a platform which gives youths the confidence and tools to speak up, both online and offline.
We are all under 25 working on the issue. We're a group of 14 youth collective. I met them through online. I've never met them in real life, but as a whole, like 1 year, we've done the work just through meeting online, just through, you know, like having Google meetings, like or DMing one another. We've managed to educate around 1,000 plus youth in Malaysia on how to protect themselves from sexual abuse. So I think it really shows the kind of power that social media has as a platform that actually brings together young people and what they can actually do.
Jessie is one of the youths who follows Ain's online advocacy.
I wish adults would understand that social media isn't just a form of entertainment for us. It's a way for us to keep connected with our friends, a way to keep connected with our teachers, with our extended family. It's how we shape our identity and just who we are as a person.
But how young people use social media is only part of the picture. What the platforms serve up to them is another. Nur Shaniza Sharifuddin is a stay-at-home mother to 5 children. 2 are adults, while the other 3 are still of school-going age. Like most of their peers, her children are active on social media.
Normally they use YouTube, and then for the 17 years old, he use Instagram also, but he not actively posting. He just scrolling and all. And then for the 2 younger one, the 14 and 10, I give them screen time, which is if they ask, then I give them to use the phone.
Nur Shaniza is also an avid social media user herself, scrolling on TikTok for online recipes, beauty tips, and educational videos. Her 14-year-old daughter shares her love for beauty content.
When she was younger, I can see there is people, girls using school uniform and then still using makeup. I said, this is not appropriate. I know you like beauty, but for schoolgirl to use this kind of content and then you like it, that is wrong.
Nur Shaniza believes her children are using social media for educational purposes. Nonetheless, she worries about what else they might encounter online.
My concern is the content that is inappropriate, like sexually, clothes revealing, and also some kind of dancing that is very, very unsuitable.
Inappropriate content on the internet is nothing new. But more recently, the issue has taken on a new dimension. The generative AI chatbot Grok sparked global backlash after users were able to create and share sexualized images of women, including minors. Grok is developed by Elon Musk's AI company, XAI.
AI-generated child sexual abuse material has exploded. So from 2024 to the first half of 2025 only, there's been a 6,000% increase of AI-generated child sexual abuse materials. So we're dealing with risk at a whole nother scale.
If AI systems are deciding what goes viral and what gets amplified, platforms should be held responsible when those systems expose children to harm.
Following global backlash, the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, or MCMC, moved swiftly to temporarily block Grok. It also launched an investigation into Elon Musk's social platform X.com.
Walau bagaimanapun, beberapa perkara hasil daripada kandungan ataupun hasil daripada dengan izin generative AI yang telah dihasilkan itu, sekiranya ia melanggar undang-undang, maka akta komunikasi boleh diguna pakai terhadap pelaku. Akta seperti Akta Keselamatan Dalam Talian (ONSA) boleh diguna pakai terhadap platform.
Between 2022 to 2025, MCMC reported an alarming spike of harmful content shared on social media platforms.
The biggest danger would be child sexual abuse materials like CSAM. So I think that is the highest of all harms and dangers that are posed to children online. Secondly, and this is not as talked about, there's also scams.
What differentiates social media platforms from static websites is how users interact with them. The aspect of friending or following could create a misplaced sense of trust in their social networks.
In Malaysia, 1 in 25 children, so that's 1 or 2 in every classroom in Malaysia, has themselves experienced online sexual exploitation and abuse. I think social media plays a particular role here. So often it is about being part of the same group, having built some trust and some connection, and often some of the features of social media might amplify this. For example, disappearing messages and friend suggestions, and generally how children are being made accessible on social media to those that have the intention of grooming.
What's more, social media platforms are designed to prioritize engagement. Their algorithms amplify content that provokes strong emotional responses.
And these systems are not neutral. They are linked to commercial incentives that reward content that keep users engaged, even if it's resulted in a polarizing and harmful narrative. At social level, peer dynamics play out at scale, reinforcing group norms and amplifying misinformation or harmful trends across networks of youth.
While creating online content for advocacy work, Ain observed this pattern on her posts.
I've noticed, even as an activist myself, what I want to do is to promote gender equality. But, for example, if I post a TikTok video saying, we should all love each other, like we should all be friends, and then the algorithm would just say, no, 0 likes, 0 attention, 0 comment. But imagine if I posted a TikTok saying, all men are so violent, all men are sexist, then I would see all of the comments that would just increase, which means that even the algorithm itself was rewarding my act of polarizing my audience.
And in Ain's case, some of the comments themselves are problematic. For being outspoken on social media on a topic as raw as sexual harassment, Ain has faced her share of online vitriol.
As a young girl online, what you face is that they may be talking about how you look, or they're talking about how your body, or they're talking about my clothes. I think that looking back to what I did, if I would actually do it again, if I would actually put myself in that position where I not only got rape threats, I got death threats every single day for my activism, I still would do it again.
This raises another concern of social media for minors. Besides exposure to harmful content, the government also cited cyberbullying as a reason to prohibit social media access to youths. According to Ipsos, Malaysia ranks second in Asia for youth cyberbullying.
I think last year maybe I became a PRS, which is Pembina Kasbaya at my school, and I've made some new changes, and people that didn't like it used to just bash me online, or maybe a social media confession account there, and I would just like read it and cry.
What does this negative comments make you feel?
Very more self-aware, and I overthink a lot if what they said are true about myself.
In just 10 months of 2024, the Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission logged over 8,300 cyberbullying complaints, an average of 27 cases daily.
So teens really struggle with self-regulation and self-esteem. So repeated use on social media actually targets these areas, which makes it really hard for them. Hence, we're seeing cases of bullying increase.
Most platforms have safeguards for children. For example, TikTok disables direct messaging for those under 18 by default. Instagram automatically sets accounts of those under 16 to private by default. And most apps restrict inappropriate content from minors. Still, these measures can be circumvented.
I believe that children or teenagers who are curious enough and adventurous enough, you can put those safety in place, they'll find a way to bypass it. Now, I usually use this analogy, right? Social media is like this massive, entertaining social club. So imagine this club just has a sign that says, if you're underage, you're not allowed to go in. There's no bouncer, there's no bodyguard to check ID, then nothing is stopping children or teenagers from walking in. We naturally think that those safety features are being used, but that's not necessarily true.
Most parents in Malaysia say they are worried about the negative impact of social media on their children. However, their children's online lives may be unfolding beyond view.
I worry about that. And my husband also worry about that because both of us working. We teach them, okay, if there's certain video or articles, you need to avoid, stop using, and sometimes if they're from the YouTube, if I can control it, I block the channel.
But not all parents are tech-savvy or equipped with digital safety knowledge. A 2024 survey by MCMC found that just 2/3 of parents use parental controls.
Yes, I feel overwhelmed because there's a time I found out that my girls, the 14 years old, she can use WhatsApp much more better than me. I even learn from them because we don't spend enough time in using the digital as much as them.
In a written reply to Insight, a Meta spokesperson stated, while the company wants safe, positive online experiences for young people, they believe parents should decide which apps their teens use, and that bans could push teens toward less safe, unregulated sites. Meta is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram.
While age limits can reduce exposure for youth, they do not by themselves change the commercial incentive that drive algorithmic amplification of harmful content. If platform algorithms continue to prioritize polarizing, sensational, or manipulative content, the same structural risks will remain for every user who is allowed on the service.
Currently, the Malaysian government is assessing various child protection mechanisms. And come July, the social media ban could be in effect. But what about the positives that social media brings to children? Will a ban throw the baby out with the bath water? Teenager Jessie used to spend up to 15 hours on the internet daily. But now, she made a decision to cut back on screen time.
I think when I was realizing that every single second was just spent on social media, like I wasn't actually out doing activities, I wasn't out going to co-curriculum, I wasn't interacting with my friends in real life that much. I was always just on social media, playing video games, listening to music, like scrolling through millions of videos on the internet.
Now she tries to limit her social media use to just a few hours a day.
For my sleep, it's definitely been improved. I sleep like exactly 8 hours with like no alarm needed actually, which is pretty cool in my opinion. And I always end up like sleeping on time, so like 11 p.m. and then waking up at like whatever time I need to wake up for like an event, or regularly I just wake up at 8 a.m. Before cutting down on social media, I was a lot more anxious, I would say, because I always feel like I need to keep checking social media. Even when I go to sleep, I feel like, no, I need to wake up again and check social media just in case I missed out on something.
On January 1st this year, the Malaysian government rolled out a regulatory sandbox. The sandbox will let authorities trial safety tools with platforms before wider enforcement.
Regulatory sandbox is useful in a way that we have to make sure that we know what we want out of the testing, and we need to have that transparency requirements, and we need to have very well-defined outcomes so that we will not be delaying what we call it meaningful regulation, because I feel like this is a good step forward.
One of the technical challenges that is being tested involves verification. What's to stop teens from lying about their age when creating accounts?
Enforcement is technically and practically challenging. Malaysia now, we know, currently considering electronic Know Your Customer (EKYC) mechanism using our MyCard, passport, or My Digital ID to verify age at registration. This could make age limits technically enforceable for sign up, but it raises questions about privacy, data protection, and access.
As an activist, that's something that's much more worrying as well, because the thing about activism is that you should have the choice to remain anonymous. So then, like, within all of my friends who are creating infographics online who might not be as government friendly, then what does it mean? So I think that will definitely crack down on the freedom of expression of not only activists but young activists such as myself who want to continually push forward the work that we do here in Malaysia.
Malaysia's move reflects a wider global trend. In December 2025, Australia implemented a social media ban for under 16 users. By mid-January, the government deactivated about 4.7 million accounts.
So the social media ban in Australia went into effect quite recently, so it's difficult at this point to assess what is the real-world impact. Of course, we know that some children are circumventing the ban, and that was to be expected, including the Australian authorities expected this as well. What is important is that the real life impact on children, is it actually reducing bullying, is it actually improving mental health of young people? That is something that needs to be monitored, and policies need to be adjusted in line with that.
Countries like France and Denmark are keen to enact similar bans. Meanwhile, Singapore has prohibited students from using their devices during school hours. This all points to growing global concern over early and prolonged social media exposure in children's development.
So I see a lot of patients who come in and they're like, "Doctor, I have this amazing persona online. You know, I am so confident, and then in real life I'm suicidal, I'm depressed, I cannot speak to a boy, I cannot speak to my friends." So social media gives me that confidence. So yes, it does. But what happens when you take it away? Or what happens when you can't hide behind a screen? Because at some point you have to face the real world. You have to go to university, you have to go to college. You can't just be isolated and have this amazing online persona. I mean, for some people maybe it works, but eventually they do get depressed. Eventually they do realize this is not normal.
In Malaysia's case, the proposed ban will only apply to platforms with 8 million users. This may leave out smaller apps like Blue Sky, or fringe sites like the message board 4chan. But this threshold will be reviewed.
And the trade-off is that children might find themselves in spaces that are even less regulated. So these are real risks that we need to factor in as we're thinking about social media bans.
And so, even among those who support social media restrictions for minors, some feel a ban alone is not enough.
Parents obviously play a vital role, but that said, no parent can be expected to single-handedly manage complex digital environment designed by a multi-billion, dollar company with sophisticated engagement system. And government policy and platform accountability frameworks exist precisely because the scale and complexity of online risks go beyond individual families. A shared responsibility model is necessary.
We need to ensure that children have the capacity to navigate their lives online and offline safely. It's really important to emphasize that children should not start thinking about safety once they have a gadget in their hand. A lot of the skills like confidence, help-seeking behaviors, the groundwork for that needs to be laid in early childhood, and risks that are online often travel offline and vice versa.
Yes, the government has a role, yes, the platforms have a role, but we as users have a role too. I think the most important thing is that we all really need to band together on this, because we can't deny, at least we shouldn't be denying, that all these parties have one aim in common, and that is to protect children from harms, right?
For now, according to the government's current timeline, the full ban will kick in the second half of 2026. Perhaps as early as July. With the ban looming, our Malaysian teens weigh what it could mean for their lives online.
I would say that it's a good place for us to explore and learn about ourselves and just connect. Having friends are more important than family at one point in our life, like during our teenage years, going through puberty and all that. And social media gives more opportunity for that, for us to connect with our friends. And it can be very, I would say, comforting.
So if it's banned, right, we're missing out on like a lot of things. A lot of things about knowledge, a lot of things about the news, a lot of things about daily life skills that we need.
I believe that the online spaces gave me a chance to explore thoughts or explore information that would otherwise not have been accessible to me. I feel like if I was closed off to that channel, I wouldn't have that knowledge that this is actually something wrong and I can stand up for myself and request for my rights, which is for a safer education system in Malaysia.